dear viewers and listeners. Welcome to the latest episode of Extra Extra. I remain your temporary host, Jason Neil Patrick Harris, Johnston Yellen. But as I look across the video screen, I do see our intrepid usual host, Joshua Hatton. He of the many changing names that if you're tuning in on YouTube, you're seeing those. Audio version, we don't really make allusions to them, but we seem to be presenting the week of July 4th holiday if the flag over your right shoulder and the hat on my head have got anything to say about it. This looks a whole lot like freedom around here.
America, but yeah, coming to here, it's the motherfucking now.
I have to say, the hat actually comes from a Seattle Mariners game. I was there with Kai probably 2 years ago now. Yeah, probably two years ago. And this was the giveaway at the front gate. And he wore it back on the plane with great pride. So I represent Kai today. I will say this, though. It is hot. Hey, a little lady. It is a little hot under here. So, oh gosh. So there you go. That's happy July 4th. Happy freedom.
See, I thought, with that on, you looked a bit more like Colonel Sanders than you normally do. It did look like the Colonel Sanders, like you had a KFC bucket on your hat, like you were Buckethead.
Exactly, Buckethead from Lincoln Park. So the reason we've continued with the temporary hosting duties for Jason is we're doing a couple of months focused on American spirits. About a month ago, I was on this Extra Extra with Amanda Beckwith from Virginia Distillery Company. Great chat about their new cigar blend. Went over really well. And then the next day she hopped on a plane to Japan. Just a coincidence. And then a couple of weeks ago, I was on here talking with Caitlin Bartlemy of Hood River Distillers, Clear Creek Distillery up in Oregon. And we talked about our upcoming release from them, which is this distilled beer, this malted barley distillate that is whiskey by any other name. And that was a great chat with Caitlin as well. So today, a very dear friend of ours, Ollie Chilton, has written in response to our conversation with Scott Blackwell, which was a full episode about a month ago, give or take, please be generous, where we spoke with him out of High Wire in South Carolina. Had a lovely chat. Followed that up with a conversation with Phil from Rocktown in Arkansas, new bourbon that we're putting out as well. So had this dedicated American series, and Ollie brings kind of a European sensibility to something we were discussing with Scott. So we have a good lengthy email from Ollie. He's always thoughtful. And we're going to present today's Extra Extra in kind of the slightly older style that we had, which was presenting a news article and then having a good old-fashioned chat around it. But we are here for a tight 35. Kept it close with Amanda, kept it close with Caitlin. I'm going to keep it close with Joshua Hatton as well. He's going to see the iron fist if he doesn't play along here. Very much in the spirit of July 4th.
I enjoy my freedoms. And so if we go over 35, it is within my bounds of freedom to go over 35 minutes.
This is great. I have all the power. I'm just going to cut you off. It's going to be amazing. So we have a salutation from Ollie, and then we have kind of the setup. So let me get through the summation and then the setup, and then we'll get into the crux. So Ollie says, hello. Very much enjoyed the recent episode where you interviewed Scott Blackwell and now hope I can make it across the water to taste his wares. We, of course, hope the same, Ollie. Joshua mentioned that until that chat and tasting the Jimmy Red Whisky, he had always shat on the idea of terroir in whisky. I truly endorse his original attitude and would purchase the laxatives to help with this. I have to say, when we recently got together as a company, I got to drop one of the best pieces of advice from Sir Sean Connery, which is underwear. I should at least affect the accent, shouldn't I? Underwear should be shilk and not shatin.
I'll tell you, when those words came out of my mouth about terroir, all I could hear was Ollie's voice in my head. So I knew this email was coming.
So Ollie continues. So a couple of paragraphs here with the setup.
Yeah.
Though I love the difference you can explore in different whiskey produced at the same distillery and how the ingredients and processes can push these changes, I strongly believe that terroir is the wrong term. It often feels like an English interpretation of French philosophy. And, as I am sure Jason would agree, like most English interpretation of finer French thinking, lacks romance and subtlety. That's $1 million sentence there. That's so good. My understanding is that it doesn't simply refer to where the grape is growing, but instead encapsulates an holistic idea that place, variety, and culture come together to create something unique and recognizable of being from that place and community and uncopyable by others. I already have my thoughts, so I'm going to hold them as we continue the second paragraph of setup.
Okay.
Wine growers work hard to adjust their processes in the field to achieve a specific result in flavour and yield, while grain growers are only interested in yield rather than creating specific proteins to encourage specific flavours. Grain, even the same strains, will change depending on weather conditions, farming methods, malting treatment, etc. And then in parentheses, I hark all the way back to your live tour of a maltings a couple of seasons ago, which was the episode I thought of when I saw Ollie's email come in.
Yep. He's throwing that right in our face. Yep.
That this will result in a different flavour in your spirit if you don't adjust distilling parameters is not evidence of terroir, but instead evidence that different ingredients in it will result in different products out. Let me reread that one. It is not evidence of terroir, but instead evidence that different ingredients in will result in different products out. It is the intention and human input that defines terroir, rather than the field being a different what three words location. If you're not in the UK or other places, you have a little Google for what three words. It's an amazing, amazing thing to do for location. So that's the setup from Ollie, and I feel like he's describing the woods while looking at the forest. And I'm curious for you, Joshua, in those first couple of setup paragraphs, what are you hearing from Ollie there?
Well, I mean, what he's describing is what I have always felt. I don't feel any of his words are incorrect. I've always felt in line with what he's saying with regards to the French approach to what terroir is. The reason why I started to doubt it a bit is how the soil itself and the place in which that same, plant, be it grapes, be it a grain, be it whatever, how it grows depending on where it is. So, for instance, let's think of our friends at Fidencio years back, right?
I'm sitting here thinking Fidencio.
Exactly, right? They released their standard Espadine, but they had certain plants that were in a field where the agave was growing in clay.
And white clay.
White clay, right? The process was exactly the same. The plant species was exactly the same. The fermentation, the yeast, all of it exactly the same. There's no maturation involved here, so you didn't have that in play. Yet you had two wildly different end products. And so taking that mentality and applying it to what Scott Blackwell was saying with his Jimmy Red Corn, and him having 3 different farms that could potentially have 3 different soil types and maybe 3 different, I don't know what their particular environments are, but I think of some wine producers who do target or who do talk about specific vineyards that oh, my vineyard happens to grow on the side of a cliff and the
Yeah, yeah.
winds hit
Loamy
things a certain
soils,
way,
sandy
right?
soils. Yeah,
All of
you
these
hear
things, right?
soil all the time.
Right, and so I using that mentality, can't we extend that to from grapes to agave to grain?
So that was the part that I kind of bit my tongue on a little bit in the setup. The first setup paragraph is, Ollie saying, my understanding is that it doesn't simply refer to where the grape is growing, but instead encapsulates an holistic idea that place, variety, and culture come together to create something unique and recognizable of being from that place and community and uncopyable by others. Like, that to me feels very reflective of the conversation we had with Scott at Highwire.
Like inclusive of the community itself.
Absolutely, yeah,
For sure,
absolutely. The
for sure.
the farmer partners, the grain partners, the fact they were looking at local culture, they were looking at tradition, and so that's the setup portion. Let's get on to where he pivots. And so I would argue, okay. So back to Mr. Chilton himself on a Sunday afternoon, likely rainy, likely in the Highlands. I would argue, in whiskey terms, the distiller who's adjusting process in distillation to achieve consistent profile, compensating for the changes in malt grain quality, has closer ties to terroir. Flavor in whiskey should be unique and a representative of that distillery's culture and community. Some distillers, such as the Spirit of Yorkshire, who we've also had great conversation with, who also grow the grain, can really tie this together in a way akin to our French cousins in Bordeaux, Burgundy, etc. Looking at how they change their processes in the field to give them the best grain to create a whiskey of their place, parentheses, God's country and home of the best tea and warm beer. Gets a resounding cheers from Jess Lomas and David Stark. So how they change the process in the field to give them the best grain to create a whiskey of their place is the closest thing we have to terroir. Though I understand David and Joe somewhat hate the term, which is understandable as it is not from Yorkshire, tying a bow on that paragraph. So here's the crux. It is the threads of consistent flavour that truly speak of terroir, such as the notes of caraway seeds in some Nordic whiskey, the medicinal smoke of Islay, or the intense tropical fruit found in Indian whiskies. These flavours appear because of the history and culture as much as because of the natural ingredients. It is the drive to make something that you and your community enjoy that makes all the whiskies unique. All that being said, I am intrigued to taste Scott's whiskey and understand the levers he can pull and the flavours being created. His story was warming and speaks to my own inner love of food and flavour. And then looking forward to picking up the above over a dram or 3 from Ollie. So I know you've got a little sample beside you. This seems, make sure I've got that right. This seems like the right time to pull out our sample of our upcoming high wire Jimmy Red Corn single cask. Is that what you already had in your glass?
So it's not what I have.
Okay.
Do you want to know what I have and why I poured it before we get back into this?
Yeah, go.
Okay. So I have, and this is just a very quick detour, and then I want to get back into this because things that Ollie are saying here, there's a lot to pick apart. There are layers here. There's a lot to dig into. So what I have in my glass is a bit of Jack Daniel's Bonded, right?
Okay.
I wanted to go American, but the reason I poured this is nation member Jasper Lyons out of Denver,
Yep.
who
Hi, Jasper.
is, one of our local brand ambassadors, right? Does a fantastic job for the nation and his whiskey club. Is also a huge, huge Indiana Jones fanatic,
Indeed.
just like you and me.
Smart man.
And he had sent me this bottle.
Okay, read it out for our listeners.
Bell of Lincoln. Now, it's an empty bottle. It's a replica bottle. It says the Bell of Lincoln, and you can see in the bell there's a JD, and it says straight whiskey, and then it says Jack Daniel, guaranteed by Jack Daniel under the Pure Food and Drugs Act, June 30, 1906, Lynchburg, Tennessee. The Bell of Lincoln. This is a replica of the bottle that Indiana Jones was drinking from while he was sitting in Cairo thinking Marion was dead.
Nice. And Jasper made this? Or these are available?
So his dad got him one of these bottles because his dad knows that Jasper is a big indie fan. And so Jasper just sent me this as like, you may not know what this is, but as an indie geek, you should have this. So he sent me this bottle. So anyway, July 4, American whiskey. Huge thank you to Jasper. I love this bottle. Jack Daniel's in the glass.
Man, I would get that 3/4 filled with strong tea and leave it on a shelf. That would be awesome. Really awesome.
And I would argue Tennessee whiskey has its own specific style. Maybe not terroir, but it does have a So back to what Ali is saying. He sets out, to me, almost saying, guys, don't use the word terroir here. It doesn't fit. And then he gets into talking about Spirit of Yorkshire, and he says, well, wait a second. In God's country, terroir actually works. So is he being a bit biased because it's God's country?
But I think this is something we've discussed previously, and I remember back to Nick Morgan, and Nick and Dave Broom were on a panel, and Nick Morgan wants to use the word terroir, and Dave Broom brings out a book called Sense of Place.
Sense of Place, yeah.
Are we safer using sense of place than we are terroir? Is it that deep connection to grapes and sometimes France that people really want to move away from? And that's kind of, obviously we can ask Ollie any question at any time, but that's kind of my question for Ollie is if it wasn't terroir and it was sense of place, he keeps talking about community, he keeps talking about culture. Right. And I felt like in talking to Scott, that's what Scott's talking about.
Agreed.
I think you then move into that realm of the still gives what the still wants. And that was kind of what Phil reiterated in Rocktown when we talked to him about how do you go about, what distillate did you want to make? That was our last episode. And I think if you're Ollie going through all these email there, he seems to want terroir to be in the hands of the distiller, reacting to what's coming out of the field or attuning the field to what can then come out of the still. And I wonder if there's a little bit of a reverse happening here when Scott says, we've worked with the man who knows grain, and we've planted, and we've worked with the farmer who grows grain, and then we've harvested it, and then we've fermented it, and then we've distilled it, and here's what that farm tastes like going through the high wire still. here's what this other farm tastes like coming through the high wire still. And I get the sense from Ollie here that he wants high wire to have something coming through the still that isn't as indicative of the field in which it grew. That to me is Ollie's departure from this more traditional consideration of terroir, as I understand it.
Well, let me ask you this, right? Here we are, we find ourselves agreeing with Scott. But I would argue, and this is just me being very open and honest, when the Waterford project first started and I tried a number of those bottlings, I didn't find the differences to be great enough to say, oh, I see what he's doing from farm to farm to farm. I mean, add to that, some of those releases did have varying cask types. And so it was difficult to kind of find the flavor beneath some of those heavier cask types. So from that perspective, is it a fair statement to say that it is so okay, is it semantics here? Should we be using terroir? Should we be using a sense of place?
And that's generally my takeaway.
Yeah.
Is it's where I'm trying to cleave the clearest difference from Ollie's email, right?
Yeah.
Because in the setup, I nod my head and I agree with him. And then in the crux of the matter, I'm kind of like, aren't we saying the same thing here? Aren't we? Right? So again, back to our old friend Ollie here.
Yep.
It is the threads of consistent flavor that
yes.
truly speak of terroir. Caraway in Nordic, medicinal in Islay, tropical fruits in India. These flavors appear because of the history and culture as much as because of the natural ingredients. There's a sentence for you. These flavors appear because of the history and culture as much as because of the natural ingredients. Is that what you and I talk about when we taste Indian cask samples together and you're like, I want to say I get this robust spice note happening, but is that because I know it's Indian whiskey? Is that what Ollie's opening the door to in that sentence?
Yeah, I don't know that history and culture play the biggest part into it. I think it's ingredients and I think it's environment. And I'll connect this really quickly to wine. So let me finish my thought there. No, it is kind of interesting, right? Where we do taste whiskey and we're like, oh yeah, there are, we get candied fennel seeds in Indian whiskeys, and we get very Indian flavors within within Indian whiskeys, and obviously Islay whiskey makes sense why you would have a particular flavor in there. Like, you're actually digging up peat, you're burning the earth itself to impart flavor into the barley, right? So that's like physical terroir, like that is the earth itself. But let me back up a little bit and apply his comments here, the threads of consistent flavor that truly speak of terroir, to wine. Now, not this past Memorial Day, but the Memorial Day before that, I was with some friends with our New York distributor, and we were tasting through 3 different vintages of Bordeaux. Same chateau, same everything, and the 3 could not have been more different. Now, granted, there was a bit of a through line, of course, right? Just like I think every distillery has its particular house style. I think the wine is going to have its house style, maybe that's grape driven or what have you. but each vintage was really different. Sometimes in one case, from a dryness perspective, in another case, from a mouthfeel perspective, in another case, one was just massively fruity, and so like I would argue those three wines didn't have a consistency to them.
Except for what was written
So
on the label.
right, and so does terroir actually speak to consistency? I don't know that it does.
No. Which, but again, right, and I love your proof is in the pudding, right? Listening to Scott back in the episode, he's at one end of travel bar, tasting, a high wire, thinks he can name the farm from it. It goes to his wife Anne at the other end of the bar at Travel
Yep.
Bar. She tastes it and goes, "Oh, that's from Farm X." And they look it up afterwards, and they both named the same correct farm. That's proof is in the pudding, right? That's reflecting a significant sense of place. And I would argue, rightly or wrongly, I don't yet know, that Scott controlling the taps on the still to make those different farms constrained by a singular high wire vision would be the mistake and would pull away from terroir, sense of place, call it what you will.
Wait, sorry. Can you pick that apart a little bit?
Yes, so you've got Scott saying, look, what comes from the farm runs through the still, and we let the farm speak for itself. Ollie's argument here seems to be, no, you should be controlling your still so that you turn that farm into the high wire presentation, right? That's your job as the distiller. The terroir, I do apologize.
Terroir.
The terroir, Shilk, not Shatton. The terroir should be running from the still, not growing in the field, which that to me removes us from sense of place and creates sense of distillery.
But at the same time, I do agree in part with what he's saying. I think the two could and likely should work hand in hand. I mean, back again to Fidencio and the producer that they work with, Del Amigo, or just really any mezcal producer, just like any wine producer, just like any distillery, right? We honor the master distiller, the wine producer, the mezcaleros for what they do with the grain, the grape, the agaves that they work with, because they're using the raw materials that they have to direct flavors with the stills or whatever it is that they're working. So it's a matter of taking what they've got from the land around them and directing that flavor for what they want it to be for the people. So it's this symbiotic thing, but no matter how closely those two things work hand in hand, I don't think it equates to any particular consistency unless you have someone else that is blending these things together for year over year over year consistency. I think the idea of consistency connected to terroir it's just not correct thinking.
Yeah, thinking back to your wine when we talk about the particular seasons. Thinking back to Dave in the Sense of Place book, where he just talks about crafts people and how they kind of reflect that sense of place in their work. I like that idea of consistency lives somewhere else. I also, Scott's not just standing back and letting the grain ferment and letting the wash run through the still. He's not just completely hands off there. He is working as a craftsperson to bring that distillate through the still. So but even then, and I know this kind of advances the conversation beyond, but even onto what Scott talks about with maturation, right? And what is in the distillery itself, what is, a mile, 2 miles away, maturing right next to the water in a very different warehouse, bringing in, brackish climate from the coast. There's your sense of place. I can't help, all episode long, I've thought back to, was it Dr. Matt Bishop who sent in a mailbag question a while ago about could you lift a Scottish distillery and have it replicate wherever it landed itself? And we were pretty convinced that the answer to that was no. And I still feel like everything we're discussing around high wire, and there's hundreds of distilleries we could insert here, Pocono, Waiheke, all of this comes to mind. Westland, for heaven's sakes, VDC down the road, it all comes to mind, right? I say this a lot, but I think Ollie needs to chill. And I think Ollie needs to allow a more varied definition of terroir into his bitter Scottish Yorkshire heart. A Yorkshireman living in Scotland is a deadly combination.
Wow.
Deadly combination.
Yeah, it's like nitroglycerin. Don't shake it too hard. Maybe what it should be is similar to having terms that are specific to regionality, right? Champagne should only be produced in the Champagne region of France. Scotch whiskey can only be produced in Scotland, right? Bourbon can only be produced in the US. Maybe terroir is a term that only the French could use. And that a sense of place, which is potentially the same idea as just semantics, can be used elsewhere. Like, let the French have their term. You can have terroir, you can have your baguettes and your berets, and we can use sense of place and just be a bit more chill about it.
Chill, right? We're back to chill again. I'm so excited. I would say, Ollie, obviously, respond. And I would also say, listeners, please, either in the comments below here, get involved, or listeners, info@singlecasknation.com. Clearly, this is a conversation we enjoy returning to. I like the philosophical debate around terroir and sense of place and what it means and does it mean anything. Like, it's a great debate. We try not to harp on it. But I would love to hear other perspectives, and certainly coming from the listenership and the viewership. So while we're mentioning the comments down below, please do ring the bell. Joshua's gone a different direction with the banner.
Well, I had to create a new banner so we can debate, info@singlecasknation.com. But yes, ring the bell like Jason had said, so you're alerted of new episodes, and then and most importantly, subscribe to our YouTube channel, right? I didn't want to take words out your mouth, but here I am.
No. That's exactly what I was saying when you were creating the email address banner. So please do that. Also take note, we do have the Clear Creek distilled Bridgeport beer coming in July. We do have the High Wire coming in July. That Jimmy Red bourbon is phenomenal. We have our first Rocktown bourbon coming in July. Have we announced any of the others? We do have an episode coming that will announce a fourth, and then we'll have another couple of announcements where we'll bring that number up to 6. So 6 American single casks coming in July. We're having a blast just going around the doors here, speaking to new collaborators, speaking to old, long-established friends like Amanda at VDC. This is a good couple of months. And here we are, the halfway point with July 4th to go out, set off some fireworks, celebrate some freedoms, maybe have a wee dram.
Maybe it's this one.
There
we go. There's
the fireworks for the viewers.
There's the fireworks.
Two thumbs up for fireworks from Mr. Joshua Hatton.
Hey, you got your hat on.
All right, friends, this has been a lovely conversation. Thanks so much to Ollie for always listening, always supporting, and sending in fantastic material. He's a good lad. We love all of our Yorkshire friends. We are very lucky to have our Yorkshire friend Jess living in Glasgow. She is a lot less glycerin than Ollie, so... a lot less nitroglycerin. So until next episode, where we will have an interview with a new collaborator. Happy 250th birthday, America. Joshua, enjoy the celebrations. Those in America, enjoy the celebrations. And around the world, enjoy your July 4th. Cheers, y'all.